it is one of those industries that you just have no idea how prevalent it is, but really it is everywhere. It is all around us. When you go out to eat, when you're just walking through a building, I mean, you just don't realize that, hey, something has to happen to keep these lights on. I mean, it is everywhere.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Obscure Careers. And of course, as promised, we are concentrating on commercial real estate. So thank you for joining us today. Our guest for today, Ms. Cassandra Pierre. She is VP and General Manager at JLL in what we would call property management. But as we will learn today, there are a lot of different names for this profession. And so I have Cassandra here to tell us all about it. And so Cassandra, we're going to start by asking you, how did you hear about property management or general management in commercial real estate?
Heard of it when I was actually working with the American Red Cross, scheduling blood drives, and I had a blood drive coordinator who worked at downtown St. Louis, and she was one of my blood drive coordinators. And so I had to work with her to schedule blood drives in the building because JLL managed the building. So all things went through them. And it was basically my insight into, okay, I think I understand how this works. There's this huge building. There are several companies within it. But, oh, look, there's actually a company that's dedicated to the operation of this building, to making sure that the lights stay on. So it got to be very interesting.
I love that. I love that. And so you fell in because someone told you about it, but what kind of education prepared you to take on this role?
So my degree is actually in international business. So I would say, something like with anything in commercial real estate, amazingly enough, it's one of those industries where virtually any degree will fit. Luckily, with my business degree, it's one of those like well-rounded, if you want to say that, those kinds of degrees where, because you have insight into the financial aspect, the communications aspect, dealing with different businesses and clients and things like that, how to handle those types of situations, that business degree really translates into this industry, which branches out into all of those different sectors. I'll say even an art degree, even a degree in education, those types of degrees can fit perfectly too, because, for example, with a degree in the arts of some sort, that's making you tap into your creative side in how you handle tenants and how you get creative in giving them different events or different initiatives to help make it fun to be in that building. And then if you have a communications degree, I mean, that can be at the forefront too, because it is about communication. It is about making connections effectively and making sure that, you're keeping those lines of communication open between the tenants, the management team, the client itself. So, I mean, there's so many degrees that can play into this industry. It's phenomenal.
Oh, that's great. Almost any degree, as you've mentioned. However, what kind of specific training might you recommend, now that you've been in it, Cassandra, that would help someone who has decided ahead of time they'd like to go into this as a career?
So I would say it's not so much as training, but if you are looking for different resources to get you prepared for entering this industry, because I will say this, I'll put this caveat on it. You can look at look at a job description and you can check off the boxes. Oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, okay, reports, invoices, communication. All right, yeah, I can do that. Check, 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 check. Think about how that job, though, plays into the industry itself and what it means for that role in this industry. And so I would say using resources such as, we call it BOMA, the Building Owners and Managers Association. BOMA.org is a great place to start with regard to if you want to see what kinds of jobs are out there in commercial real estate and what they typically entail, what they're looking for. Checking with BOMA, seeing what kind of courses that they offer for their real estate professionals, commercial real estate professionals as well, is an awesome resource to tap into. When you are actually trying to, if you have yourself like on that management type of path, you're like, okay, eventually that is exactly where I want to be. I would love to be a general manager of my own building, have my own team. That is what I want. Think of it, don't just think about the operational aspect. What goes into running a building? Don't forget about the managerial aspect of it too. So I would say try to find different resources, different trainings that will prepare you for how you effectively manage your team. Because it goes back to all of the, you have the buzzwords about, oh, you have so many different personalities and how to handle each one. Because it's true. It is absolutely true. You have to be adept at really trying to figure out what speaks to each individual person so that you can get the most out of them, and in turn get the most out of them in how they operate the building, how they interact with the tenants, with the client, and to make sure that you have the highest performing team as possible.
We know that there are several roles that a property management professional takes on during their career, such as managing the tenants, collecting rents, setting rents, screening the tenants, property maintenance, ongoing maintenance of that building and operation. But tell us, what does your day-to-day look like in a role? And tell us a few other names that a property manager may be called within this field.
Absolutely. So I'll actually just use my career journey as a way to set it up for the different roles that you can come across. So we have, when you're in a property management office, the typical team is a tenant services representative who is typically the front lines person. They're the person that you encounter first at that front desk as soon as you walk into the office. They're the ones that typically get the disgruntled tenants or just someone popping in the office needing directions or just having a general inquiry. And that tenant services representative also, with regard to the operation of the building, they could be handling updating certificates of insurance, making sure that our service contracts are current, also just processing invoices each week and making sure that we can pay our vendors on time. But they are really like that first initial person answering the phones, just being out there on that front line in the property management office. From there, you have a property administrator, which you can grow into. And as you grow into that property administrator role, which sometimes could possibly be called an administrative assistant, you get just a little more into the financial side of things, being signed accruals and making sure that you're recording tenant billbacks for different services that have been addressed in a tenant space, which would then be recorded on a rent statement that is billed monthly to each tenant. If you have a parking garage, you would also be in charge of coordinating the parking and signing transponders or badges and making sure that they still have the updated access to different systems with regard to the parking garage or perhaps access to their spaces. So that would be the next step up from a property assistant, or excuse me, a tenant services representative. So from there, you have a property administrator. You could even become a senior property administrator, depending upon the trajectory and the room to grow, depending upon how big your building management team actually is. And from there, you could then be just vault right into that assistant general manager role. That is when you become the general manager's number two. For all my sci-fi people out there, I'm going to date myself, but it's like you've got Captain Picard and he had Riker. That was his his number one. And so, you've got that assistant general manager takes on more responsibilities because you are essentially the backup to the general manager. Now you still have that buffer between the general manager and the client. So As the assistant general manager, you can take on bigger projects such as the monthly or quarterly reporting, depending upon the frequency that your client desires. Dealing a little more with HR issues, possibly conducting walkthroughs of different vacancies for different tenants that may be interested. For that, you would need a real estate license. You have to have that to show space in the building. Right. And so that's a huge deal. But from there, you're also that other point of contact that the client can go to and should feel comfortable going to if for any reason the general manager is not available. But as long as you're showing that development and you're like, I'm going to get to that general manager position, and then it happens, and then you are that direct conduit between to the owners. So you're keeping them updated with regard to the operations of the building, and just making sure that you're getting buy-in for different projects or different initiatives that need to be implemented. And really, if it is a traditional multi-tenant building, the tenants go to you with any issues, and you go to the client if it happens to escalate to a certain type of level where you need that owner's input. What you try to prevent is having a tenant go directly to the owner, because that's what you were hired for. You were hired to run that building and to make sure that the buck stops with you. They put you in place to run their asset, and they trust that you have that knowledge, you have that expertise, you have that experience to help them make informed decisions about, okay, look, we really need a new chiller. And I understand it's going to be thousands of dollars to put in this building, but you have to think about it past the short-term financial impact. You've got to think about what this is going to do for the longevity of your asset. So you have to get really skillful in getting that buy-in from the owners. And sometimes, general manager and property manager, those terms are used interchangeably. Same thing would be said for an assistant general manager. You could also be called an assistant property manager. And that's the administrative side. If you're interested in the engineering part, you could start as an operating engineer, and you can move up to a lead operating engineer, and eventually an assistant chief and a chief engineer. And it's amazing. And what we try to, with the engineering side, what we really try to impart to them is, as you progress into more a role with more responsibility, you can't really focus on that day-to-day maintenance and repair of the building, because as you assume more of a managerial role, you will have more things that go along with it. Compliance with audits that you have to make sure that you are submitting by a certain deadline, making sure that we're having different inspections scheduled throughout the building as it relates to the fire life safety system, and making sure that things are per code for the NFPA code or OSHA. And there's a lot more red tape, so to speak, that you have to work through, because as a manager, that's what comes with the roles, whether it's on the administrative side or the engineering side. So so it's just, and I will say, for the interchangeable titles for the engineering part of it, sometimes you may also hear them referred to as maintenance technicians as well. So that's just something else to be on the lookout for.
Okay. That's really great insight, because when we go on salary.com or LinkedIn or Monster or all these other sites where you can find careers in commercial real estate, we may see all kinds of titles. And so I'm really glad, Cassandra, that you brought that up, so we can know what to look for. And all of these skilled future leaders that we're talking to today will know how to look for jobs that they may be interested in. So I'd also like to note within this that this is one of those jobs as well that has a trajectory that can go quite high in terms of scale of career and salary. So I know I have seen that we could start in the 50,000s with a career in property management and some of the other aliases that this job has, and also go up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, correct? For salary range. Yes?
Right. And and I will say for the role, like when you're just getting in as a tenant services representative, that role is hourly. And so you start to get salaried when you move up into a property administrator role. So, you could start as low as, man, and that was 11 and a half years ago when I had that role. So I have to think here. I believe it was somewhere in the high 30s, low 40s for tenant services rep or property administrator. And then you get bumped quite a bit when you start getting into the managerial roles, because it lines up with the responsibilities that you end up taking on, and because you're not just like, hey, this is my new title, look what I'm getting. It's your title, and you're getting that much because of what goes along with it. I will say, you will earn that money. You will absolutely earn it. For managers, you have an annual bonus that's tied to, it's a certain percent of your annual salary. So there's that as well.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds like a great place for someone coming out of school to start earning their career in commercial real estate, which is what we're focused on today. And so, tell us you're so excited, Cassandra, about your job and what you do. So I have heard you say a lot of things you're very excited about. And so tell us, what are the best parts of your job? Just a few sentences about what the best part of your job is.
Um, Dealing with the tenants, as far as like just even seeing their gratitude when I'm in St. Louis, and so when there's a day game for the Cardinals, and you're fixing popcorn for them, and they're just like, thanks so much. And spring tenant parties, or passing out the holiday gifts to your tenant contacts, that is extremely rewarding, because you're like, okay, you hear some grumbles, and because you can't always make everybody happy. But it's things like that that really pay off and make it worth it.
Oh man, that sounds amazing. And you also told us in that kind of the part you didn't like as much, which was the grumbles. So
Well,
well,
right.
we can't please everybody all the time.
Yeah, you take the good with the bad. You have to.
That's right. Oh man, that's amazing. So thank you, Cassandra, for telling us about property management or general management and what that career looks like. So we hope that we have inspired you through our subscribers. We hope that we have inspired you to look at a career in commercial real estate, maybe even in the field of property management or general management for buildings. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for being with us today. It has been a great pleasure for you bringing all your wisdom and knowledge here with us today. We hope to talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.